After a disappointing 2019 season, Missouri fired Barry Odom and now brings in Eli Drinkwitz, who went 12-1 in his only year as a head coach at Appalachian State. But can his success carry over into the SEC? Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, the best kept secret in all of college football. Today bringing you our 2020 Missouri Tigers college football predictions. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also make sure to check out everything down in the description below, where you can visit our brand new website, thegridironexpert.com, and also check out everything on our social media pages over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So going into 2019, Missouri was one of the most hyped teams in the country. And that was mostly because of the arrival of transfer quarterback Kelly Bryant, who came over from Clemson. People thought that Missouri could be a double-digit win team in 2019, could contend for the SEC East in 2019. And they didn't do any of that. A lot of it was because of injuries, sure. A lot of it could have been motivation, if you want, because Missouri did get that one-year bowl ban, so anything that they did not matter. But the Tigers went just 6-6. They were upset by Wyoming in Week 1, won 5 straight games. They were 5-1. They lost 5 straight games, including a loss on the road to Vanderbilt. And then they won their final game of the season over Arkansas to get them to that 6th win. Regardless, Missouri was fed up. They were done. They fired Barry Odom, and in comes Eli Drinkwitz, who has a lot of rebuilding to do in Columbia. And that starts on the offensive side of the ball. Drinkwitz is an offensive mind. Appalachian State had a great offense last year, but keep in mind, Appalachian State was built by Scott Satterfield. And Drinkwitz was using a lot of what Satterfield left behind before he left for Louisville. So don't take too much stock. Don't put too much stock into what Drinkwitz did with the Mountaineers. But he is an offensive mind. He's been that his entire career. And Missouri needs a revamp on that side of the ball. Major question is, who's going to be quarterback? More than likely, it is going to be Sean Robinson. But don't sleep on Taylor Powell either, a guy that could contend for that job. Sean Robinson, though, coming over from TCU, sat out last year, but has a chance to get that starting job as one of the few quarterbacks on the roster that has Power 5 playing experience. They're going to be mostly led by Larry Rountree, the running back who rushed for over 800 yards last year and 9 touchdowns. So Rountree is probably going to be the workhorse for the Tigers offense because they don't have many great options at quarterback. Still have some questions to figure out there. And their wide receiver core is extremely depleted, losing their top 3 pass catchers from 2019, but they do bring in Damon Hazelton, the wide receiver transfer from Virginia Tech. So offense up and down. They ranked 93rd in the country last year in total offense, and now expected to be about the same, if not worse, in 2020. We look at their defense, though, guys. That's going to be the key for Missouri this year. That's going to be the key on whether or not the Tigers can win a few SEC games and maybe get to a bowl game, if, of course, we do have them, in 2020. They returned 7 starters on that side of the ball, and Drinkwitz made a fantastic move by retaining defensive coordinator Ryan Walters. The Tigers had the 6th best passing defense in the country last year. They ranked 14th in the country in total defense, and they ranked 16th in the country in points per game allowed, allowing less than 20 points per game. So the talent is there, guys. They're led by Nick Bolton, their leading tackler from last year. They're led by Kobe Whiteside, their sack leader from last year. The talent is there defensively for Missouri to bail out the struggles on offense that they are more than likely going to have in 2020. So we take a look at their schedule here, guys. It's not very favorable. Tough road games at South Carolina, Tennessee, BYU, Florida. A lot of tough teams, of course. When you're in the SEC, that's bound to happen. But we do think they're going to open up the season with a win over a good UCA team out of the FCS. Certainly not a game that Missouri can afford to overlook. A UCA team that did go on the road last year and upset a eventual 9-win Western Kentucky squad who beat Arkansas in the SEC. So don't overlook the Bears of UCA, but Missouri should get a win here. And I think they also get a win over Vanderbilt in Week 2. And Vanderbilt team that they lost to 21-14 last year, guys. Remember that. They went on the road to Nashville and lost 21-14. But this is a revenge game for Missouri. Vanderbilt is going to be way worse offensively. I think one of the worst offenses in the country in 2020. Only strength for them, like Missouri, is their defense, but they're certainly not going to have enough to come to Columbia and win this game. So Drinkwitz starts off 2-0 at Missouri, 1-0 in conference play. Things are looking pretty good. We think they fall on the road, though, at South Carolina. So they're 2-1 with a loss to the Gamecocks. This is a team they beat 34-14 at home last year. Remember, South Carolina had one of the toughest schedules in the country in 2019. Like Missouri, over the course of the season, they were just ravaged by injuries. And of course, you can't predict those. You can't help those. You just pray they don't happen. But this year, I think South Carolina will be healthy. They should be healthy. Ryan Helinski, I thought, did fantastic when he was under center. All things considered, being thrust onto the starting job like that right after week 1, I thought he did a great job at quarterback. The game's at Williams-Brice Stadium, and I just think Will Muschamp is going to be fighting for his job in 2020. And to get his name off that hot seat, he's got to get to a bowl game. And to get to a bowl game, you've got to win your winnable games. You've got to win your winnable games at home, and this is one of them here. I think Missouri's offense struggles mightily against a strong South Carolina defense. The Gamecocks get the win here. So they're 2-1. We think they bounce back, though, at home, and they take care of Eastern Michigan. So they're 3-1 going into October. Eastern Michigan certainly, again, not a team you can overlook coming out of the MAC, but one that I think Missouri should handle. So they're 3-1 here, got a conference win under their belt, and they're halfway to bowl eligibility. They're 3 wins away from bowl eligibility. And they've got Louisiana here. They've got a winnable game against Arkansas. Things are looking good for Eli Drinkwitz in year 1. 3-1, we think they fall to Tennessee. Kicking off October and the bulk of SEC play, they're going to fall to the Volunteers. Now, they only lost to Tennessee 24-20 last year, so that's something to keep in mind. Despite the struggles that Missouri had, they only lost by 4 to a Volunteer squad that is carrying a 6-game winning streak into 2020. And that's the biggest thing here, guys, that Tennessee, I do think, improves drastically competitively. When you look at their schedule, they might not improve much in the win column, but they're certainly a team that should improve competitively and should carry a little momentum after the strong finish they had under Jeremy Pruitt. This is a team that, like Missouri, has to find consistent quarterback play. If Jarrett Garantano takes a step forward, Tennessee could improve in the win column. Their defense will remain strong. They were 23rd in the country in total defense last year. They've got home field advantage. And the major key, again, for Missouri is how well does their offense play. Because they're going up against some stout defenses here, guys. If their offense struggles, they're not going to be able to beat these defenses. They're not going to be able to move the ball against these defenses. If they surprise and they do better than we expect, then they'll be more competitive in these games. But regardless, they do fall to Tennessee. They're now 3-2. And I think they fall on the road at BYU as well. And that game could come as a surprise for some. That game could come as one that people think BYU should lose. That BYU should not be able to beat a team out of the SEC. But this is just a horrible, horrible game for the Tigers, guys. They're in the middle of October, so they've already played, well, this is going to be their 6th game here. They're used to conference play. They've already had 3 conference games by this point. Now you're sending them out west to Provo, which is a very difficult place to play regardless. BYU always plays well there. So having that kind of just really tough non-conference game right in the middle of your conference schedule is never good for any team, especially when you've got to go that far out west. And this is a BYU team under Kalani Sitake that I think will drastically improve in 2020. A team that, to me, is similar to Tennessee in the way they're going to improve. They got Zach Wilson back at quarterback, who, when he's healthy, is one of the best regarding it in the independents. And I'll even throw him as one of the best in the Mountain West. That's who they play most of the time. And this is a BYU defense as well that returns 7 starters and is certainly going to improve as well. Not a bad defense last year and will drastically improve again this year. So all things considered, if the game was in Columbia, I might lean Missouri's way, but sending them out to Provo right in the middle of conference play doesn't add up as a victory for me. So they fall on the road to a Cougars team that will go bowling in 2020. And then, of course, naturally, they do fall for their 3rd straight loss to Georgia, a team that's not going to lose to many people, if any people, in 2020. Of course, they have a couple tough tests: Alabama, Florida, maybe Tennessee. But Missouri's offense is going to be no match for arguably the best defense in the country. Even though the game's in Columbia, they will not be able to defeat the Bulldogs, a team they lost to 27-0 last year. So after a very strong 3-1 start, they're now 3-4, guys. That 3-game stretch, really 4-game stretch with Kentucky, is just absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal for Missouri, and they're going to conclude that 4-game stretch with another loss. So 4 straight losses in this stretch, facing off against a Kentucky team that their defense, especially in the passing game, was even better than Missouri's. Missouri's was 6th in the nation. Kentucky's was 2nd in the nation when it came to passing defense. And we know that last year, Kentucky was very interesting offensively because Lynn Bowden was their quarterback. That's not going to be the case anymore. Lynn Bowden's gone, which means they're going to have a traditional QB under center, and that's going to be Terry Wilson more than likely, the guy who led Kentucky that 10-win season just 2 years ago. So he is back at quarterback. Kentucky's got a great offensive line. They've got a great pair of running backs. The defense is always strong under Mark Stoops. So forget that the game is in Columbia. This Kentucky team is going to be a tough out for many teams to face. And once again, I just don't know if Missouri's offense has what it takes to exploit enough weaknesses within this Kentucky defense to snag a win at home. So they drop to the Wildcats, a team that I'm very excited to watch for this upcoming season, a team that really could win anywhere between 7 to 9 games in 2020. So toughest 4-game stretch, they drop all 4. 2 on the road, 2 at home. One of those, of course, against Georgia. They get their bye week on Halloween. That couldn't have come at a perfect time, in my opinion. Couldn't have come at a perfect time because they've lost 4 straight games. They still have a chance to go bowling. Mississippi State, Louisiana, Arkansas, all winnable games for the Tigers. And they've got to really right the ship. Eli Drinkwitz has got to figure out in this off week how to improve and how to get his team back just in the win column. Unfortunately, it's not going to come at Mississippi State. We do not think they're going to be able to go on the road and defeat Mike Leach and his air raid Bulldogs. This is going to be a game that comes down to 2 things. If Missouri's offense is clicking, if they start improving and really start to hit their stride, I question whether or not Mississippi State's defense can stop them. At the same time, I question, can Missouri's defense stop Mississippi State's air raid offense led by KJ Costello? And don't sleep on Kylan Hill, a guy that I think Mike Leach, because of the pure talent Hill possesses, will utilize more on the ground compared to what he did during his time at Washington State. So this is a Mississippi State team that offensively is going to be great. Defense is the only question, but they've got the home field advantage. I think they have just enough to exploit some weaknesses within that Missouri secondary, and I think Mike Leach snags a huge conference win at home despite Missouri coming off that week of rest. The schedule just gets tough after the Eastern Michigan game, guys. The month of September is great for Missouri. It gets very difficult after that. You can go ahead and mark Florida down as a loss as well. It's Georgia and Florida as the top 2 teams in the SEC East. We all know that. We all know that the East is most likely going to be decided when those 2 teams meet on Halloween. The game is in the Swamp. Missouri lost by 17 to the Gators last year in Columbia, and that was a better Missouri team than I think they're going to have this year. So all those things considered, in the Swamp, a Florida team that at this point could be undefeated, could be a 1-loss team, but regardless is still in the hunt for the SEC title, for the SEC championship appearance, is still in the hunt for a college football playoff appearance. They're not losing to the Tigers in the Swamp. They come home here, guys. They're in the midst of a 6-game losing streak. Of course, they cannot go bowling anymore, so Eli Drinkwitz will have to wait at least 1 more year for that to happen. But I do think they get back in the win column at home against Louisiana. They get a win at home against Louisiana. That's their 4th win of the season. And you'll notice we didn't give them an automatic victory here against the Raging Cajuns. That did not happen because this is a good Louisiana team, guys. One that Drinkwitz is familiar with. One that Drinkwitz faced 2 times last year. Once in the regular season and then once in the Sun Belt Championship game, winning both of those. But this is a Louisiana team that went 11-3 last year, had the 8th ranked rushing offense in the country last year, rushed for over 250 yards per game, and their defense was 21st in the country when it came to stopping the pass. But the big number that sticks out to me for the Raging Cajuns is that they were 82nd in the country when it came to the run game and stopping it, which means Larry Rountree might go off in this game. Senior night for the Tigers. Season's done, if you want to say so, but they want to go out on a high here. And I think Rountree, the guy who I think carries the offense for the majority of the season, has a huge game for the Tigers. They snag a win over Louisiana, but fall in the finale to Arkansas in Kansas City. A game that, if we do not have fans, will be very lackluster because a packed Arrowhead Stadium would have been fantastic between the Razorbacks and the Tigers. It's just not going to be the same if there are no fans or not a whole lot at such a great venue. But this is an Arkansas team, guys, that Missouri has defeated 4 years in a row, but all good streaks must come to an end. And I think this one does come to an end here, guys. I like this Arkansas team not to go bowling, not to contend against the top dogs, but offensively, they certainly have the edge over Missouri. Felipe Franks, Rakeem Boyd, the wide receivers, an improving offensive line, and a great offensive mind as coordinator in Kendall Briles. And this is also an intriguing matchup as well because Barry Odom is now the defensive coordinator for the Razorbacks. Of course, as we mentioned, Barry Odom, the former head coach at Missouri, was just fired last year. It's a little bit of bad blood there. And you know, the Razorbacks on the edge offensively. Barry Odom wants his defense to go out there and perform just to kind of show Missouri what they missed out on. It's a little bit of bad blood there, and I think the Razorbacks win in a very close game. Keep in mind, guys, the Razorbacks were a hot mess at the end of last season and only fell to Missouri 24-14. They were in that game deep into the fourth quarter and very well could have won it, and that was a horrible Arkansas team dealing with the interim head coach at the time. They do that. I think they go on the road to Kansas City, get the job done, and the Tigers of Missouri finish with a 4-8 record in Eli Drinkwitz's first year in Columbia, his first year in the SEC. And guys, Missouri fans, I know that's not what you want to hear. I know that's disappointing. I know you might say, well, beat Arkansas. Okay, give them that win. You're 5-7. I just don't see this being a bowl team. Missouri this year is not a bowl team, and I have my doubts about Eli Drinkwitz, guys. If you watched our coaching hires and we graded them, he was one of the guys that got the lowest grades of the bunch. Eli Drinkwitz had 1 year as a head coach. He has been a head coach for 1 year. And those were not his players. It wasn't really his schemes. Scott Satterfield set him up. And you're jumping from arguably the worst conference in college football to the best conference in college football. I hope Drinkwitz proves me wrong. I hope he proves me wrong, but it's going to take some time for him to do just that. He's not set up for success in year one in Columbia, but maybe, who knows, down the road, the Tigers can get back to contending in the SEC East. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. Also, check out everything down in the description below, where you can visit our brand new website, thegridironexpert.com. And also follow us on our social media pages over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching. And we will see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.